do that on Twitter at Annita_McVeigh and use the hashtag BBC Your Questions. Well, let's stay with this very subject now, because we're joined by José Manuel Barroso, who is chair of GAVI, the Vaccine Alliance, which is the global health group that aims to increase access to immunisation in poorer countries. He's also the former Prime Minister of Portugal and a former President of the European Commission. Mr. Barroso, thank you very much for joining us on BBC News today. Good to see you.
My pleasure.
You said that ensuring the access, the success of COVAX, the initiative to ensure fair access to COVID vaccines around those lower income countries, should be the top priority for the meeting, the virtual G7 meeting today that the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is chairing. From your previous experience of representing the EU at G7 meetings, how effective can this platform be in ensuring that that kind of ambition is realised?
First of all, we very much welcome this initiative of Prime Minister Boris Johnson, convening this first G7 under his presidency, the first where we have the new American President Joe Biden. We expect very important results in terms of global solidarity, because in fact, no one is safe until everybody is safe. And the best, or I would say the single global effort we have now in place is precisely COVAX. So it's a cooperative global effort to reach all the world. We have already now 190 countries part of COVAX. In fact, I should say 190 plus one, because the United States just joined COVAX now with this new administration. And we think we are on track to deliver this year more than 2.3 billion doses of vaccines. At least 1.8 billion of those doses will be for lower income countries. So I think it's important to understand that while there will be virus circulating, there will be always risks of reinfection. So of course, I understand the point. I was Prime Minister of my own country, as you know. We of course understand that, first of all, the heads of government have to take care of their own countries, but it is important that they also commit to share excessive doses. And there are many countries that have excessive doses, and that's why I really welcome not only the generosity of the British government towards GAVI and COVAX. It has been great leadership of the United Kingdom, but also this push for global solidarity. I heard yesterday also President Macron of France. I know that the other countries from Canada to the European Union, they are committing also to this dose sharing of excess doses. And this is certainly the way to do, not only because of a moral imperative of solidarity and justice, but in our own interest, because we cannot close the world. We need, if you want the economy to come back to some kind of normality, we need the world to be open for people, for goods, for travel, for services. And this is the way to fight this pandemic.
OK, so you say it's morally the right thing to do. Economically, it's in countries' self-interest as well. But the World Health Organization, the WHO, says 3/4 of all vaccinations so far have happened in 10 countries that account for 60% of global GDP. So it seems that vaccine nationalism is already very evident. So would you like to see wealthier countries like the UK, like the US, etc., do more in terms of donating vaccine supplies right now, rather than in some yet to be defined period of months in the future?
Of course, the sooner the better, but I'm a realistic person. I understand that the governments, they first of all think about their own populations. But what they can do now, and I hope that will come out of this meeting today, is a clear commitment on doing it, either in parallel or at least when they believe their population is basically reaching the point of immunization. And in fact, we in COVAX is a facility created by GAVI, Global Alliance for Vaccines, but also with World Health Organization and CEPI, and with other partners like UNICEF. We expect to start the rollout of vaccines probably as early as next week, this February, so still this February. And this is very good news, because in the past, the delay of vaccines coming to developing countries was much bigger. Of course, I understand the frustration and the anxiety, but some countries are going faster than others. By the way, the United Kingdom is going very, very fast also that other developers, economies. So not all have to go at the same time. There are problems, logistic problems, regulatory issues, some problems also in terms of the legal requirements, some of them quite challenging. This is going to be the biggest ever in history, the biggest ever logistical distribution of vaccines in the world, completely unprecedented. So I share that anxiety, but I think we have to say that we can deliver, we'll be on track, and the generosity shown until now, not only by the UK, but we expect today to have important announcements from Germany, from the European Union. Yesterday, the White House announced $2 billion for GAVI and through GAVI to COVAX, and that will be part of a $4 billion commitment to help vaccinate the world. That was a bipartisan agreement.
Clearly,
in December.
very significant, if I can just interrupt there, that the US is back in this multilateral sense. But you talked a moment ago about you understand, the frustrations, and you understand that individual leaders in various countries absolutely want to ensure that their populations are vaccinated. I just wonder, looking back a few weeks to the row, the heated exchanges between the EU and the UK over vaccine supply, whether you think the EU has gone down the right route in trying to have a pan-EU agreement on vaccine supply rather than really expecting individual countries to look after their population supply needs?
Yeah, in the case of the EU, I think it was the right way. I understand there were delays and there are criticisms. I understand that. But let's think what will be the alternative. Wouldn't it be better if you had a competition, competitive bids, let's say between France and Germany and Italy and Spain and the Netherlands, trying to buy vaccines at a higher price? That will be disruptive for the European Union and probably also for the whole world. So while I understand there were some delays, partly also because the regulatory process in Europe, the European Medicines Agency has very strict rules, took some more time than, for instance, the United Kingdom. But the reality was that it was good that the European Union could have a holistic perspective. If not, I can tell you, it will be much more complicated, not only for the European countries, including those who have less financial power, but also for the whole world, because then we'll have, of course, much more competitive bids with the different, let's say, providers of vaccines.
If I could touch briefly on Brexit in all of this, because that point very much relates to Brexit, because we saw the EU talk about triggering Article 16 of the Northern Ireland Protocol, effectively putting a border on the island of Ireland. You know, it does suggest, and that was in the very early days after Brexit, you know, it does suggest that the fundamental agreement might be susceptible to further tension. It might be very susceptible to, difficulties emerging like this. We've seen it over the vaccines, like this, between the EU and the UK. So what are your thoughts on how to avoid getting to that point in the first place in the future?
Yeah, I mean, nobody said it will be easier. It will be easy. I mean, we knew from the beginning, by the way, that a separation like that, Brexit, will bring some tensions and frictions. And we saw that. I think that that decision of the European Union, by the way, was not the finest hour of the European Union. At the same time, let's be fair and objective. Some time ago, the United Kingdom also had announced in a legislation that was in the Parliament that they could not implement the withdrawal agreement that had been already signed with the European Union. So let's be fair about that. That's in these separations, there is always a trauma. Psychologists speak about sometimes a period of denial, a period of anger, and afterwards a period of acceptance. I think we are coming closer to the period of acceptance, where both the European Union and the United Kingdom will have to accept a new kind of relationship. And because it's, I believe, in the interest of both sides to be together, of course, respecting the decision of the United Kingdom to leave the European Union, but to work together in so many issues, like, for instance, fighting the pandemic. And that's why today, around the table, the majority of leaders are from the European Union in the G7. And I'm sure they will try to do the best to make it a success with the UK in the presidency of G7. This is what makes sense in this very complicated world of today.
And, it is a very complicated world. It is a very interconnected world. Let's talk about climate as well while you're with us, because your 2008 climate and energy package would be regarded as one of the key legacies of your time as President of the European Commission. Now the US is back in the Paris Climate Accord under President Biden. How important will that be in your estimation? And also, if you look at the urgency with which the world has responded to the pandemic, do you think we have ever actually seen the same level of urgency and international cooperation over the climate emergency?
Not yet, but I hope that will come. And in fact, the fact that now the United States are rejoining the Paris Agreement is great news. I also want to congratulate President Biden. I've been working with him when we were both in office, and also John Kerry, who is now the special envoy, and that will sign this agreement back. But now it's extremely important because the United States with China are the two biggest producers of greenhouse gas in the world. So without them, it's impossible to have a global agreement. Now, we know from experience that unfortunately, it's easier to sign agreements than to get them ratified. The United States has signed Kyoto Protocol, but it was not ratified. It was signed the Paris Agreement by President Obama, but it was not ratified. In fact, the United States left the agreement. Now, the United States is going to recommit. Let's hope that the Congress will also ratify the agreement, and that will be having binding legislation to commit to the decarbonization. Once again, here, Europe, including the United Kingdom, we are leading the world. And the United Kingdom and European countries are leading the world in a very ambitious goal. I believe it's ambitious of 20% of decarbonization. So it's critically important. Then the two biggest economies, United States and China, are also leading this effort. And I think that's one of the best news we had recently received, precise, that the United States are joining or rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement.
So do you think, and finally, Mr. Barroso, there is a unique opportunity here as governments talk about building back after the pandemic, to build back greener, to build back better, and these two issues dovetail?
Yes, there is a clear connection between public health and climate and environment. I think, in fact, one of the consequences of this pandemic, it's too soon to measure what the consequence will be, but is to call the attention of mankind, of all of us, to some of these challenges, and hopefully to work together for what we have been calling global public goods. We have differences, and let's not underestimate the political, ideological differences between some of the big powers, but at least for those common public goods, like public health, like environment, like protecting the future of our planet, protecting against climate change, I think it makes sense to work together. We can no longer say your side of the boat is sinking. Either we do it together or we may be sinking, all of us. So that's probably, if there is no leadership, without leadership, that will not happen. But if there is intelligent and determined leadership from the leaders, that's why this G7 is important. Hopefully the G20 also later in the year will be important. I believe we can use this terrible pandemic to have a more cooperative approach to solve the problems in the world. I have no illusions. There will be competition between countries. There has always been. But it is important that competition takes place in a framework of cooperation and not in a framework of confrontation.
Very good to talk to you today, Mr. Barroso. José Manuel Barroso, Chair of the Global Vaccine Alliance, GAVI.
Thank you.
Back now to the news that we broke